Hey, what's going on, guys? Arekkz here, and welcome back to another video for Phantasy Star Online 2. Wait, hold on. I'm in the wrong place.
Wait, another video?
Another video?
That sounds... Oh wait, it's my channel. Good morning, Burbs. My name is Azalera, and I am here with Arekkz today from Arekkz Gaming.
How's it going? Thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much for coming over. It's very interesting because Arekkz is someone who does a lot of coverage for Monster Hunter. And then Monster Hunter is like a franchise that is kind of like really close to Phantasy Star as a whole, because a lot of people might see like, wow, Monster Hunter is like, you know, really closely related, and they would say like Phantasy Star is maybe like Monster Hunter but in space. How do you feel about that?
I can definitely see elements of that. I mean, I definitely feel I think there's definitely parallels between the two games. I think the sort of Phantasy Star almost transcends beyond that point to some of like the more current games as well. But yeah, I can see, especially for some of like the bigger fights, there's definitely that sort of hunting aspect.
Yeah, definitely. And then also all the part breaks and everything, the mechanics of like, you know, breaking parts to disable enemies and like just going on downs and just avoiding the enemies, attacks, big attacks that will basically like one or two shot you and stuff like that. It really gives you that feeling of like immersion that a lot of other games might not.
Yeah, no, I can definitely, I can definitely see that. Like, it does bring back a lot of the memories because it's been like quite a while since I've played Phantasy Star. That's the wrong one. But it's been a very long time. But yeah, I definitely remember like there's some of the sort of the iconic battles that kind of stood out. So yeah, I suppose when you sort of like when you reference it like that and you think about, you know, you set aside all the trash morphs in, you know, that you fight beforehand and you get to those kind of the big battles. Yeah, you can definitely see that inspiration.
A lot of people might or might not know that Arekkz is actually an OG fan of the OG Phantasy Star Online.
Yes, yeah. I played Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2 on GameCube. That is I'm embarrassed to say it's the only Phantasy Star that I've played, but I sunk so many. Like, I think I had over like 1,000 hours into that. I sunk the same kind of caliber of time that I do in Monster Hunter into Phantasy Star Online, and like I love that game so much. I had that was back in the, even though I know there was technically a way to go online with it. It was more like a game that me and my friends used to play like after school, because obviously you could have like the local version. So like we had some friends that used to play that as well, and that was that was really good. That was such a good game.
Yeah, and then for context as well, for someone who doesn't know that what like Phantasy Star Online 1 and 2 is, it's a 2002 release back in the Xbox and the GameCube. That's like 18 years ago?
That's a long time. I'm showing my age here. That is a long time ago. But yeah, it was so good. That was just like thinking about sort of, because I think that's probably sort of what gave me that first taste. Like before I'd even played things like World of Warcraft or anything like that. Like it gave me my first taste of like looting and that kind of experience, you know, going through and trying to get the best weapons. And I remember like I had a friend at school who used to have like, he had I thought I played the game a lot and he played it so much more, and he was always every time I went to like, you know, visit him, he'd be like, oh yeah, don't worry, I've got some really good weapons for you, I've got these different things. I'm like, okay, yeah, give me that.
Yeah, it's one of the very first like creators or like the founders of the dungeon crawler style kind of game, because 2002 Well, 2002 is actually episode 1 and 2, but the original Phantasy Star Online is actually from the Dreamcast in year 2000. So this is the 20th year. It's been 20 years since the original Phantasy Star Online. It's crazy.
That is insane. Because I remember as well, you know, I've vaguely sort of followed the series since then anyway, although I haven't played like too much of it. I remember when things like Universal like Online came out, but they were never that easy for you to play over in the West. So that's kind of where it's been one of those things where like I've always wanted to play it but never really kind of had the proper opportunity. You know, I haven't got the time to be trying to work out how to VPN all this stuff. I'm just like, if I can't play it, it's not happening.
Yeah, and I think what you said just now is exactly what a lot of people in the Western side of the world thinks about Phantasy Star Online 2 right now. Because initially, PSO2, or Phantasy Star Online 2, is actually initially released in Japan since 2012. And then 8 years later, now 2020, today, at the time of this exact recording, we are exactly 12 hours after the launch of PSO2 NA's closed beta on the Xbox. And it's crazy that I've never ever seen any traction on Phantasy Star Online 2 before as much as this. Like, it's actually trending on Twitter. It's actually one of the really high streamed games on Twitch, and just like it's mind-blowing to me.
It is amazing to see. Yeah, like I love it. I love it when things like that happen, right? Because it's like, you know, it's I guess Monster Hunter went through a very sort of similar kind of transition, right? Because like for a long time, it's like Phantasy Star Online. I think it's fair to say that prior to this point has probably had quite a niche following, right? In the same way that Monster Hunter used to. Like, you know, you have your dedicated fan base that like they super love it, but like beyond that point, you could say Phantasy Star Online and someone will be like, "What's that game?" Like the same thing happened to Monster Hunter. For a long time, people were like, "What is this?" And then suddenly World came out, and then now everybody knows what Monster Hunter is. Now it's Capcom's biggest selling IP, and it's just like, so to see something like that for Fantasy. I mean, honestly, when I was at E3 last year and I was in the Xbox conference and the Phantasy Star Online 2 trailer played, I was like, you have got to be kidding me! Like, no way is this happening.
Right?
Is this serious? Yeah. So I'm super happy to see that, because this is a fantastic like series, and I mean it's kind of a shame that at the moment the beta is just North America, but I'm hoping that like maybe the attention of it, and if they're seeing that, you know, maybe so they'll decide to spread that further over into like Europe and stuff. But yeah, it's great to see the game getting that attention.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, also, speaking of like the beta being in North America and stuff, the thing right now about Phantasy Star Online 2's North America is it's basically more or less a global release, because the officials did confirm that the game will not be region locked, at least for the moment.
Okay. Interesting. Mm-hmm. But you have to get a closed beta code though, right? So you can't just, if someone's like listening to this right now and they're like, oh, maybe I will check it out. Like, you can't just go and download it and play it, right?
Yeah, you had to go through the Xbox Insider Hub and then go sign up and stuff like that. It's a bit of a process, and also the beta right now is only like a bit of a stress test, because it's only going to be up for 31 hours, for what I know.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're planning for an open beta right after the closed beta.
Oh, nice. Okay. Is there a date window for that yet?
We do not have a confirmed date yet for the open beta, but I think it should be within around 2 weeks, if I were to guess it.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well that's not so bad then. I can hang tight for that. And right now, because I saw like predominantly obviously they're pushing it on Xbox, but one of the things that Microsoft is known for is obviously, you know, you can play your Xbox games on your PC. So can people play this beta on PC, or do you have to play on Xbox right now?
Right now, the closed beta is only exclusive for Xbox.
Okay.
Yep,
fair.
Although the open beta, I'm pretty sure, is going to also have a PC thing. It's not entirely confirmed yet, but it's a big speculation that's very possible. Since initially, Phil Spencer did say in an interview that he was planning to, on release of Phantasy Star Online 2 North America on the spring of 2020, is that they're going to be releasing the game on all platforms. So it's going to be accessible on PS4, on the PS Vita, on the Switch, on everything. PC
Wait, on the
as well.
Switch?
Yes.
Whoa, hold on a minute, right? Like here's a fun fact. Right? I'm a massive Nintendo fanboy, right? So if ever you say the Switch, I'm there, right? I'm fully there.
Yeah, because actually the PSO2 only got adapted to the Switch around like less than 2 years ago, in Japan at least. So it's actually really interesting, because the way Phantasy Star Online 2 works on Switch is they actually play with the Switch Cloud. So it's actually PSO2 Cloud.
Okay. Interesting.
Although the only problem with that is a lot of people who may like be playing outside of Japan on the Japanese servers for PSO2 will have a bit of lag because it's the cloud servers. But
of course, yeah.
Yeah, but from all my friends that were talking about like how PSO2 runs on the Switch and stuff, they actually said it's all really good.
Okay, oh that is encouraging to hear. Question for the Switch one, or actually just like any of them, because I remember like obviously it's kind of in the name, but like Phantasy Star Online, like there is an online component, but when I played like on the GameCube, you could obviously play it offline. Is that option still available for 2, or is 2 like purely an online game?
2 is actually purely online for this one.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a big MMORPG at this point, but rather than even saying it's an MMORPG, it's more a little bit closer to like an action online RPG rather than like an MMO.
Yeah, because it's still like instance based, right?
Yeah, it is instance based.
Yeah.
And then the most that you can do is like, for example, the biggest party that you can right now is a 12-man party to do like big boss raids.
That's still pretty sizable though.
It is pretty sizable, yeah. But otherwise, like normal other quests and stuff is usually either 4-man, or some quests are also 8-man. So
cool.
That is definitely about it.
That's decent team size. It's cool to hear there's like 12-man like boss battles and stuff. That's cool.
Yeah. Oh man, talking about 12-man boss fights, I'm getting like flashbacks now, because one of the biggest bosses when episode 4 is about to end, there's this boss named the Deus, which is basically the Guides of Creation kind of. He is just this giant boss where initially he was so strong that when we ran him for like the first few times, we'd see a lot of people actually fail their quests or like get wiped by him and everything. It was amazing to see.
Oh wow, yeah, that kind of reminds me of sort of like raid bosses in like play like WoW and stuff. You kind of go into it and you're just like completely overwhelmed.
Yeah. And I think that is definitely a feeling that a lot of new players for the North American version is going to experience. And then it's something like, it's something I feel is probably going to be irreplaceable. You know, the very first time you get to quote unquote hunt monsters and then you get completely wrecked by them because the skill gap is so big between you and the monster and you just don't know what they do and stuff. And it is super surprising. That thrill is, I think, is just irreplaceable to games of this type.
No, you're definitely right. Like, you think to like any kind of games that have got that sort of component, you know, whether it be like that in Phantasy Star Online, or whether you think about like some of the like crazy monsters in Monster Hunter, or you think about like some of the raid bosses, like those moments, they always stick with you, right? You can do like so many cool things in the games, but you'll always have like, if you speak to someone that plays like MMOs, they'll always be like, oh yeah, this raid boss that happened on this particular encounter. You remember when everyone wiped? Like those memories are the greatest.
There's this one quote that a lot of people actually like to tell to me, at least like in real life and stuff, is that sometimes, you know, you can forget your memories of like what you've done or anything like that, but the memories that you feel really good about, you won't forget how it made you feel.
Yeah. Definitely. No, I 100% that. Like, I have the same thing, like, you know, again, I use, like, World of Warcraft a lot of the time, because that was, although I played, like, loads of MMOs before, that was one of the first ones that I kind of, like, really, really sort of sunk my teeth into properly, like, prior to, like, apart from Guild Wars. And then, like, there's so many memories that when, like, me and my friend played at a university, like, but it would be funny, because it wouldn't always be, like, notable things. It wouldn't be like, oh, completed a raid. Sometimes we just do random things where we go off and explore the world, and you encounter things that you shouldn't, and you're just, like, those memories just stick with you. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of like those memories though, do you have any like big impressions for say Monster Hunter? What was like your one boss that you're like, I will never forget this thing because it killed me so hard or something like that?
I think for me in Monster Hunter, it was definitely always like Tigrex or Tigrex, depending on how people like to pronounce it. But so for him, because in the original, so like obviously when I first played, I started playing in Freedom Second, so I played on PSP, and you know back then I was completely new to the game, complete noob, and I'd never played a game like Monster Hunter at the time because I was so used to, you know, you go into a boss battle normally, you have a health bar, you whittle away at the health, and you kind of sort of know that. But I came into this game and like I picked it up off the shelf in a game store and was like, oh, it's got a giant dinosaur on the front, that looks fun. So I bought it, started playing it, and then like it was alien to me to begin with because I'm hitting this boss and I'm just like, I can't see his health. What's happening? I feel like I've been fighting this thing for 50 minutes. Like, why is it not dead?
Yeah.
And it was just, but then, like, eventually started to click. And like, Tigrex is definitely one of those like make or break moments for you because he is so aggressive. And like, when you're new to the game, he will destroy you like again and again. Like, he has no no restraint. He'll just, especially when he goes into like rage mode, you just, yeah. So I lost to him so many times, and then finally when I defeated him, I was like, okay, now I get Monster Hunter. And from that point onwards, like, yeah, sure, I had challenges and there were things that I died to. I think in the early days on PSP, I think I still died to most monsters like the first time I tried them. But then eventually it all started to fall into place. And then, yeah, that was probably the most notable one.
Although compared to you, my gaming history is very small. And then I'm probably like a very late bloomer when it comes to like games and stuff because whether it be like Monster Hunter or Phantasy Star, right? Phantasy Star Online 2 is like one of my biggest like breakout gaming moments because before Phantasy Star Online 2, I was only playing very small like Flash games on like Java sites and stuff before.
Now, to be fair, there's some great games on those. Like I used to when I was younger, like I used to play games on like miniclip.com. That used to be my home for Flash games. Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Before that, I never actually got to play any proper games because I never actually owned any consoles and anything. So Phantasy Star Online 2 is like my very first like entry into like an actual big video game on the PC.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah. So like my experience with that is just completely different from what a lot of people are like, oh my god, I've played like, you know, this game like 10 years ago on like the, you know, these consoles and stuff. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Fair. No, that's fair.
Yeah, and which is also the same for Monster Hunter as well, is that my very first access into Monster Hunter is Monster Hunter World.
Oh wow! Okay, brilliant. I mean, to be fair, like, I mean, although there were fantastic games before then, it's also like a great time to jump in because there's definitely like a lot of great quality of life stuff in World. So you definitely experience like an awesome version of it.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me because every time I come into these games, including Monster Hunter as well and Phantasy Star, is like I always get to talk with people and then they're always saying like, oh my god, they do this like the old games, or like I get this feeling from like the old game, or like, oh my god, it's a monster from the old games. But then it's a weird feeling for me because it's like I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I can see what you mean. Yeah, like I mean, I guess because there's other games that I sort of jumped into like slightly later and stuff, and you still like everyone else sort of recognizes it, but then I guess like gradually you just sort of get caught up, and then those sort of lines start to blur. Like to begin with, it might seem pretty present. You'll be like, okay, cool, I don't know about any of this stuff, but then as you get more and more familiar, like those lines just tend to blur away, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because like right now, even if you ask me about some of the older Phantasy Star Online games, I'm like, I can answer quite a bit of this now. Or even Monster Hunter itself, I'm like, yeah, I know a bit.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's something pretty interesting, because now that we're talking about these games today like this, but like if you really think of it before these big accessible or breakout titles, as you would say, like PSO2 right now or Monster Hunter World, there's this quote from Phil Spencer, which is the vice president of Xbox, and he says exactly this. So many of the constructs in today's online console games were born in Phantasy Star. And 90% of the gamers today don't even know what a Phantasy Star Online is.
That is so very true. It's true, and it's nice to see that like he's actually kind of acknowledged that, and then sort of trying to like use that as a means to show people what it is. Yeah,
for sure. And then especially the reveal last year for Phantasy Star Online 2 on the Xbox is, it was mind-boggling for so many people. Like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I genuinely didn't see it coming. Like, I know that Phil Spencer's sort of always talking about like, because Xbox has for the longest time struggled over like in the East anyway. Like he's just but he always still tries to kind of visit like Japan and other places like that, just try and or visit like Korea recently as well, just to try and sort of build relationships and like strengthen that part for Xbox, because obviously it is weaker over there, and to sort of see that he's done some of that stuff. Like obviously there was Crossfire from I forgot the name again. Korea studio, and then there's obviously Phantasy Star as well. So he's obviously kind of making efforts to try and spotlight those things, which is really good.
Yeah, because like in a Phil Spencer interview recently, he also talked about how he was in Japan a lot and just building relations with game companies, as you said earlier, right? And he was like, there's such a big gaming culture in the eastern side of the world, and then people just don't know about it in the West because it never gets localized, or it never like really existed in the West.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
Which is something that it's like, wow. When you really realize about like all these games, like for example, if you're me, right, and then you just say Monster Hunter World or like Phantasy Star Online 2 is your first entry into these games, and then eventually you get to know about the history of these games, it's like, why have I never ever heard of these games before in my life?
Yeah, no, it is. It genuinely is so true. There's some games that I sort of I've got into late, and I'm just like, I can't, like, I mean Dark Souls was one of them, for example. Like, I got into Dark Souls and Dark Souls 3, and I tried to play number 1, I tried to play number 2, and they just didn't click. And then when 3 came around, I was like, it was the same thing that happened to me in Dark Souls, the same thing that happened in Monster Hunter. I was like, I want to know why people like this game so much, so I tried really hard number 3, and I was like, and then finally it clicked, and then my love for the Soulsborne franchise has like grown. Like everything since then, obviously I'll be like, I played Dark Souls, played Sekiro recently. I played, similar sort of things with like Neo and stuff, and now I can't get enough of that genre. But when I finished Dark Souls 3, and I did everything of that, I did like all the secret bosses. I was like, I can't believe it's taken me this long to get into it. But then you just then you go back and discover that stuff, right? So it's almost like uncovering a goldmine.
For sure. And then I think it's not necessarily a bad thing, joining a game in like some of the later parts of it, because you get to really delve into the history of it and be like, wow, there's so much that came before this and then made this what it is today.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think it doesn't matter when I mean some people might always be like, oh no, I've been there from the start. So it doesn't matter. Like ultimately, if you get into a game and you realize you like it, like that is the most important thing. It doesn't matter when you start. Like just the fact that you've discovered it is the best thing.
For sure. Definitely. Well, anyways, talking about like gaming inspirations and all of that, here's a small fun fact. Since the original Phantasy Star Online was actually released in the year of 2000, and then Monster Hunter initially released, the first game was on the PlayStation 2, am I correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that was in 2004. And it was actually surprising because there's this one quote by like a lot of online forums and even wikis and everything. They basically say that the action style action game, like the dungeon crawler kind of game, is like a style that Phantasy Star Online started, right? And then Monster Hunter is the franchise that really refined that style and popularized it. How do you feel about that?
I definitely think I think it's interesting because I think there's sort of there's two sort of pathways for this. I think on one side, yes, definitely, because I think it's funny because when you sort of first mentioned that quote to me, like because it's been so long, like it's been like what 18 years since I played PSO1. I kind of my memory of it is more so. I don't know. I guess I would have likened it more to say something like Diablo initially, like it from my memories. But then when you reminded me of all like the boss battles and the fact they were kind of Monster Hunter-esque in the fact that you have all these different like moves and phases you need to learn, then I definitely think there's elements of that 100% are true, because Monster Hunter, has definitely really breathed life into that like single target, like monster-focused battles that makes like a big spectacle over one particular target. But I also feel like on a different spectrum, I always feel like Phantasy Star Online sort of laid the foundation for what is now an emerging and incredibly like popular genre, because you have games like Destiny and Division and like Anthem and other things like that are obviously they're more shooter focused, but they all fall within what people typically call like this MMO light space, where they offer you like the MMO kind of experience, but instead of because if you play something like World of Warcraft, that is like a full-time job to like live and breathe that game. Meanwhile, you play like the MMO lights, where it's something like Destiny, you can kind of jump in for a few hours a day, do some quests, get some loot, and then kind of work around that. So I always feel like all those years ago, I feel like Phantasy Star Online like laid the foundation for that as well, because now like so many games just like loot driven games, right?
It's really interesting now that you talk about it like that, because like I said, me as like a late bloomer into video games, I'm really starting to come into gaming in this era, and exactly what you describe is what I'm seeing in basically a lot of today's big and famous games. And then when I really think about it, I'm like, wait, this is awfully familiar. These kinds of mechanics is like, I've seen this before.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then also on that too, I think a lot of games are also starting to come into doing what is called like a live service kind of game service, where you buy the base game, which is like just one big engine, and then they basically just keep updating the game and patches and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting to sort of see how like the the landscape has changed as well, because you go back a few years and it used to be like you buy your box game, you complete your game, and then you buy the next game. And while that definitely still very much exists, these days there's like a lot of narrative games, things like that. But there is definitely a big shift now towards games where people are like, there's almost that expectancy. Like back in the day, you buy a game and you're like, all right, I finished it. That's it. I don't expect anything more. Whereas like now everyone's like, where's the DLC? Where's the update? Where's the patch? Where's the balancing notes? Where's all this stuff? And it's like, holy, it's like, I mean, it's cool, but sometimes like it's funny. Like I'm always on like two sides for this, because obviously I play a lot of those games and I enjoy them, but then every single time there's another one of those games that comes out, to try and juggle all of them, it's just like you're living and breathing these games all the time. And sometimes it's almost quite nice to be able to just play a game and be like, okay, cool, I finished this game. It can go on my shelf. I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really does get overwhelming, because like you said, a lot of games are really doing that now, and then it's like you kind of have like this obligation to do all these other games too, because it's like, oh, I gotta do the daily quest for this game, I gotta do the daily quest for that game.
Yeah, exactly right, and that's why like it's so like it's such a struggle. Like there's so many games last year that I still haven't finished that I really wanted to, and unfortunately, like for me, because of kind of the, a lot of stuff that we cover anyway, is like a lot of say like the narrative or the single player games tend to sort of have to take a back seat for me. Like I'll start them, but then it'll be like, well, okay, there's a big game that's come out that's like a living, breathing live service game, and okay, there's a ton of content to do, and then like so it's like the prospect of sort of sitting down and spending 60 hours on like a story game, like I just can't find that time sometimes, which is which can be frustrating. But yeah, it's definitely a shift in the landscape. I think there's a lot more expectancy these days for you to be able to like buy something and there just like be continual content.
And then believe it or not, I believe that with the PSO2 Western release in 2020 here, we might be starting to get another like mentality shift when it comes to video games too, because Phantasy Star Online 2 is completely crossplay across every single platform.
Oh, okay.
Meaning every single player, from whether you playing on the Xbox, you're playing on PS4, PC, Nintendo Switch, PS Vita, and like all that stuff, you can completely crossplay.
That is really, really cool. And to be honest, you're right. I think gradually we are moving towards that direction. I mean, like, Microsoft are heavily pushing that ultimately, even though their console, they sell consoles and manufacture consoles, they're like, they just want people to be able to play games anywhere. Hence why they're pushing things like, xCloud, you can play on your PC, play on your Xbox. Yeah. And, they've done some cross-play stuff between like that and Switch. So, it in this kind of generation, it seems that it's always been like Sony dragging their heels. So but I feel as you move into like the next gen, there's definitely going to come a point where cross-play hopefully becomes standard.
Yeah. And it kind of like closes the gap between the communities as well, because before then, even with some of the more older games and stuff. Say, for example, like the Call of Duty franchise and stuff. It's like, oh, are you playing on Xbox? Are you playing on PS4? You know, or PS3? Sorry, at that time maybe. And it's kind of like this separation. Like, oh my god, Xbox is better. Nah, man, gotta play on the PS3, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there's always been those battles. I think, and yeah, that's obviously what kind of bred like quote unquote console wars, right? But realistically, it's just like, you just want the ability to play your games with your friends, no matter where you are.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
And I think that with PSO2's release, it's going to be a very big like beacon. I think for a lot of games moving forward, they're going to look at this and be like, if they can do that, why can't we?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And considering, you know, because I mean, although it's like it might be like new to the Western audience, it's not even a new game, right? So if they've been doing it for all this time, then it's just like, yeah, it's clearly possible. So yeah, I 100% want to see that as a standard because yeah, it just unites more people, right?
Yeah. Although now that I really think about it again, like since we were talking about like the live service games and stuff, I believe there was actually one like online live service game for Monster Hunter. I think it was Frontier Z.
Yes, yeah.
Did you get a chance to play that?
No, I never did, unfortunately, because it was like it was Japan only, so you had to play it through like some sort of VPN. And from what I gathered from people, like there were some really cool aspects that, for me, as like an outsider looking into it. But from what I gathered from people, like that as like an MMO experience was stupidly grindy. Apparently, you know, like you know, you had to like grind crazy levels to get to anywhere that you wanted to, or like to get onto the good content and stuff. And then and some people said it kind of depends on like your stance on it. If anything, you might have sort of draw more parallels between like Frontier and like Phantasy Star Online, because some of the boss battles in Monster Hunter, like Monster Hunter in itself, sure, they're, you know, it's not a realistic game because, you know, you're fighting monsters and swinging giant swords at them. But principally, a lot of the monsters that have existed, or at least on like the handheld and the main series titles, have been more kind of quote unquote realistic. Whereas you look at something like Frontier, and suddenly you're getting to the point where they're just like basically aliens. Some of these monsters, like they have like stupidly over the top abilities, but they almost look like bosses that maybe could exist in something like Phantasy Star Online. So maybe there's sort of parallels there. But yeah, I always watch like people play it, and I was like, oh, you know, there's elements that makes me want to play it. But just hearing that it was basically like a World of Warcraft style MMO grind that, you know, to be able to get to where you needed to. So yeah, I didn't play that one. There was also the Tencent developed the sort of the Chinese Monster Hunter Online as well, which was more of like an MMO as well, and that was interesting as well. But yeah, I don't think either of those have really sort of gone anywhere. And obviously Frontier recently has shut down, so.
Yeah, when you said that like a lot of monsters in Frontier Z can probably be like monsters in Phantasy Star, I had the biggest grin on my face because 2-3 years ago, I can't remember when, but we actually had a Frontier Z collaboration where we actually got Elzelion.
Oh, I remember, yeah.
We got Elzelion in Phantasy Star Online 2.
Oh, and yeah, I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah, Elzelion was this like really wacky looking monster that is literally half blue and half red because he's like ice and fire.
Yeah.
The fight and the locations and everything that they replicated in Phantasy Star Online 2 is exactly like in Frontier Z. And even we have Phantasy Star Online is not a game that has the mechanic of like the enemy monster roars and stuff, but then they actually managed to add that and all the carving and everything into the game as well.
Oh,
it's just,
that's brilliant. They really, whenever they do collaborations with studios, whether it be like in, you know, Monster Hunter or in the other respective game, they always just like do them really, really well. Like you look at like recently when they did the Final Fantasy collaboration and they brought Behemoth into Monster Hunter, and Monster Hunter's Monster Hunter's never had an aggro mechanic in the kind of conventional sense. You know, they implemented that, the Witcher fight when they did that, and then you look at like Final Fantasy 14 when they actually added in like Rathalos into that, and they had elements where like, you know, you're playing in a quest, and if you die 3 times you fail and stuff. It's really it's so cool how they, because I think collaborations like that are the best ones, right? It's one thing to say, oh yeah, sure, you can borrow RP and just slap it in your game. It's another thing to be like, no, let's get the feel and the embodiment of the series and put it in. So yeah, they're cool.
It's amazing. I love seeing those so much, and I feel like it's something that's like, it just gives you such a good impression. Not like, for example, if I've never played Monster Hunter before, right? And then I played like Elzelion on PSO2, and then it's like, okay, this is completely Monster Hunter feeling, because like you said as well, on that quest specifically, if you die 3 times, you're also like quest fail, you know?
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Okay.
And that is almost never really a big mechanic in like Phantasy Star, because it's a lot more entry level, like casual kind of game. So it was definitely very interesting. I would love to see more game studios do that in the future, though.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a nice thing. I think it's funny because in this sort of day and age where everyone's always like assuming everyone's competing, the reality is like game studios, they play each other's games, they like each other. Like I think a lot of game studios would quite happily do collaborations given the opportunity, right? So
Yeah, for sure. Like even the Monster Hunter guys and the Phantasy Star guys are like, when they had like their anniversary stuff, they're like, yo man, we're really good friends. That's why we're gonna do this collaboration. You know, we just met at like this cafe and just talked about things, and we're like, let's do it.
that's awesome. That is cool. I can definitely see that happening. I know some of the Monster Hunter team, and I can just definitely sort of see them like getting on together.
Yeah, for sure. It's just crazy to really think about like how things are going. Although speaking of like Monster Hunter Frontier Z, as of last year, December 18th, the service actually got discontinued already.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. I mean, as I say, I never really played it, but like for if anyone sort of decided they want to sort of jump into it, it is a bit of a shame, and it's weird because I don't feel like any of that stuff was ever really going to be seen outside that anyway, because Frontier was always seen as like the sort of side thing. It was never like, although it was like using the Monster Hunter IP, it wasn't like the core Capcom Monster Hunter team. None of that stuff was ever seen as like canon or anything. So I don't really think there will ever be a situation where, say, Frontier monsters or Frontier weapons or anything like that will make their way into main series. They may like do versions of them, but that is unfortunately pretty much, down with Frontier.
Do you think that Monster Hunter is going to try something like that again?
I don't know. I mean, it's difficult because Monster Hunter is hugely growing in popularity, and obviously it's now Capcom's biggest selling IP. So I think it's fair to say that without question they'll be doing more with the game regardless. But at the moment, I don't know, because it seems like Capcom have been doing like going sort of strength to strength recently, but they seem to be excelling more so in their in controlled environments. I don't know how they would handle if they did like another full on online MMO, because even like Monster Hunter, right? Monster Hunter, you can play online, you can play like all your quests online, which is fine, but even to begin with, it had like a few sort of teething issues and whatnot. So I personally see like them continuing Monster Hunter in the more traditional manner for the time being. Like I would see them, I guess the next thing would be moving to like PS5 and Xbox Series X, whatever's after World, maybe doing something in handheld. So yeah, I don't see it in my mind as them sort of like picking up like another Frontier style thing. But hey, you never know, right?
Yeah, because I mean, if you really think about it, Monster Hunter World is kind of like a live service light kind of game in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it does share the elements of that, when you have like these free like updates and everything. It just makes me personally really just think about like, how is this going to go in the future?
Yeah, I feel like they may like expand on that and sort of do more stuff on like, a weekly basis kind of thing, but I don't see like the main team ever like really transitioning to like a proper MMO style format, because I don't think that's necessarily what their strengths are. I feel like if Monster Hunter ever went there again, it would again be in a similar situation where it would be like a side team that would kind of go off and just use the IP to do it.
For sure.
But yeah.
Well, that was such a really interesting topic though, that we actually literally just came off from how like games inspired off each other, and then having like a more like friendly, not really like rivalry, but it's kind of like, how do you say it? I'm not sure proper word for this. It's kind of like just like a friendly competition, I guess.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So with that said, like right now, as opposed to how Frontier Z was basically inaccessible to the West because it was like a Japanese thing, Phantasy Star Online 2 was basically that. But then now it's here.
Like, yeah.
Now it's here. The question is, like, a lot of people have this question because like the game has already run its course for like say 8 years, right? A lot of people are really skeptical of like, why would they like release now after 8 years? Do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because like just before the podcast, like obviously I've never been a like a graphics focused person. Like I play games for gameplay first, like and graphics are second to me, right? So but just before the podcast, I was quickly watching a stream of someone sort of like playing right now, and then like because I haven't played Phantasy Star since like 1 and 2, so again 18 years. Like I suddenly watched it, and I was like, oh, it does still look quite dated, right? I mean, not that would stop me because like I'm a fan of the series, so I would play it regardless. But I wonder whether with the attempt of it coming to the West and the attempt of being like, play this game kind of thing, and it's one of those interesting situations as well because say like a lot of people, if they watch E3, they see a trailer, they see like the CG trailer, they're like, oh, this looks really really cool, and then suddenly they jump over and they see the gameplay, it looks quite dated. I'm interested to see, obviously it's got a lot of attention right now, but I'm interested to see how much broader appeal it will have, because the unfortunate reality is a lot of people like modern day are very kind of graphics led first. They're like, oh,
Right.
like, I want my games to look really cool first. So I do wonder how it will do long term. I mean, I think if anything, I think it's one of those sort of, it could potentially be one of those like test the water things, right? It might be that like Microsoft are like, oh, we're going to throw this out here anyway. We don't expect it to do gangbusters. We don't expect it to have like 10 million people playing or like Fortnite numbers. But if we can use this to gauge interest, maybe behind the scenes, they're like, if there's enough people, maybe we could look in for like next generation PSO3.
Yeah, for sure. Because like even today, it's a little surprising to me that Phantasy Star Online 2 North America's closed beta launch was actually, quite frankly, a little bit of a disaster because the servers basically got overloaded.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of sort of expected, right? I mean, like, I feel like every beta ever is just always like a mess on day one.
Now here's an interesting question that I have, because you've worked with like game companies before, so you might be able to like give me a little bit of an insight in this, but since before you played the beta, right, you have to register on the Xbox Insider Hub. So you would expect that Microsoft would know exactly the numbers of how many people signed up and are interested in this. So they would prepare beforehand, right?
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, like I used to work at Microsoft, but I didn't do like server infrastructure and stuff. So like my complete understanding of it is not quite there, but like largely speaking, my understanding is that like whenever people register and they can use those numbers to like spin up servers, they will never one for one match them. They won't be like, okay, 50,000 people registered, therefore we need a server to support 50,000 people, which sounds silly in your mind, but I guess you need to remember as well, like they will use algorithms and equations to be like, okay, cool, 50,000 people might have registered, but the chances of all of them actually trying to log on at the same time is kind of slim, because you assume like, all right, someone's registered but they've got work, they might play in the evening, or someone's got like family, maybe they'll only play on the weekend. So a lot of the time, even when people register, then like the actual exact amount, it's not always one for one, where it's like that number going to servers. So obviously if they're like, oh, we're going to spin up a server that supports 50,000 people, which is obviously more expensive, then I think they tend to sort of do it in like a different way. It's either that, or it's actually like a pure development point of view where like the server has the capacity to hold it, but like the actual authentication like login process is like a bottleneck where like physically the server can hold them, but then when people are all just trying to log into the game at the same time, the game is just like, oh no, I can't deal with this. So but I'm not like a tech guy. Like that's just my understanding loosely of it.
And then, although what you said just now about the login servers and stuff was actually pretty spot on, because I believe that was exactly the issue as well, because the servers themselves actually didn't really have any issues or anything, but it was the login servers that were congested.
Yeah, that's often the thing, though, right? Then it's like there's always that kind of thing in network infrastructure. It's either your like your backend just like sheer volume, or it's just your actual like tunnel to be able to get people in, right? So that's often that's why these games like introduce queues, right? Because it's just basically like we can get you all in, but you just can't all be in at the same time. So they put in this queue and then they slowly funnel people in.
Which is though is a pretty good thing, because at least this is like a closed beta, since the team did confirm that there is going to be an open beta sometime soon. So at least they would know better now that I guess we do have a lot of interest.
Yeah, it's true. That is definitely true. Yeah, hopefully they can. I mean, that's the thing. It is a stress test, so hopefully they can learn from that, and definitely knowing that it'll be an online beta, and also with the as you mentioned before, like while it is North America, the fact that it's not region locked means that on open beta day, there's a lot of people that are going to be wanting to try and play that. Like, so
yeah, and especially imagine, for example, if the open beta is also open for like the other consoles, for example, like PC especially. And we also did have a bit of a leak as well, that we saw that PSO2 North America is going to be released on Steam.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, that will be big. That will be big. That will be
exactly really big. Because imagine on launch day, it's like everyone on Steam opened their front page and they see this big game, free to play, new MMO RPG by Sega, etc., Phantasy Star Online 2. And then some people who might be playing Phantasy Star Online since like the OG times and don't know that literally PSO2 even exists is gonna be like, what? Where did this come from?
It is so true. It is so true. Like, yeah, I think it's like I was sort of saying before. I think a lot of people have probably got like distant memories of the game anyway. Like, short of it. I mean, I played it all that time ago, but short of it being showing up in the Xbox trailer, Xbox conference like last year, I'd all but kind of assumed the game or the series was just
gone.
gone basically. Yeah. So yeah, I think people if people see this coming back, it'll be like, oh yes, that'd be awesome.
And it's kind of like a redemption story.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and they've got the right framework for it, right? Because as you say, like if it's free to play, like because that's the other thing as well with the shifting kind of landscape of gaming right now is like a lot of games, especially this kind of game, like people are still very much expecting to be like, okay, cool, a new story game comes out, I'm going to pay for it, fine, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of games, especially if they're in that like multiplayer space, that online space, people are just like, they almost expect these things now to be the free to play model.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like, well, I would still check it out. Like, even if they were like, all right, we're going to sell you Phantasy Star Online for $30 for the game, and then you can like pay that, I would still buy it. But I feel like what often makes these games blow up is that when they have that free to play model, because there's a lot of games like either releasing soon or have released already that are like in that multiplayer model, but they have a pay to entry point. And even though it might not be hugely expensive, even if it might just be like a $30 game, that is like a barrier for some people. But if it's literally like, oh, it's on Steam, it's free, download it. If you don't like it, it hasn't cost you anything. Like, that's literally a win-win.
Definitely, for sure. And then the thing is, like, a lot of free-to-play games have this like weird stigma where it's like, oh man, this game is gonna suck your wallet dry, or like it's gonna try to milk you as much as possible and something like that. But Phantasy Star Online 2 does absolutely not do that.
Yeah.
Everything you basically can buy is either only convenience, for example, like inventory expansion or like temporary storages or stuff like that, or cosmetics. And then everything is completely marketable by player shops. So you actually don't have to spend a single dime in the game and have the full experience.
That's really cool. And I also feel like games like that anyway. I feel like games like Phantasy Star Online anyway, you can kind of get away with like more stuff like that anyway, because it's not a competitive game, right? Like you play together. It's like the same thing with like Monster Hunter. You're working together, and I feel like the issues typically arise more. So I mean, yes, microtransactions, irrespective, has never been like everyone's favorite topic, but I feel like people are a lot more forgiving if they're games like these where it's like, well, all right, you might be to buy like, I mean, because if you say there's convenient stuff and like paying to expand your inventory, that is still kind of slightly grey territory, because some people are like, well, that's kind of a bit annoying having to do that. But at the same time, it's like it's a PvE game, right? Like, so it doesn't really matter. Where that starts to get murky is if it's like, oh, it's a competitive game, and then there's like angles for it. But yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, because like even then, there's like the player markets and everything. You cannot market any of the end game like gear and weapons and stuff. You actually have to still work for them, no matter who you are.
Nice. Okay, that's cool. So
it's gonna be a very interesting thing. And then now, speaking of like entry point into like the games and stuff, it's crazy to think that like, oh, we're gonna reboot this now in 2020, even though it's been gone for like from the face of the earth like forever. It's still absolutely mind-boggling to me that they will still try to do this, And it's not that they're localizing it really cheaply as well. They're putting in so much effort into this. Like, have you got a chance to see the Phantasy Star Online 2 North America's social medias at all?
Loosely. I haven't followed it sort of like too much, but I have seen little bits here and there.
Yeah, but they've been tweeting like crazy with the community. They've been interacting. They've been everything. It's basically like a completely community-based thing. And then it kind of feels like, the Phantasy Star Online 2 Twitter is basically like a friend of yours. It's like, yo, man, PSO2, how you guys doing today? And like, yeah, man, we're doing great. We got some news later today, just check it out later tonight. And
That's cool.
It's super cool. And I think that it's basically one of like the very cool directions that a lot of games probably might be able to like look at this and be like, maybe we should do that. It's kind of like a transmedia kind of thing where it feels like PSO2 itself, at least in North American version, because the Japanese version doesn't really do this as much, but it really feels like they're more than just a game. It's like they're a friend of us as well.
Yeah, I think that's sort of like kudos to the community team for that, right? Because it's like there's people that work in like community space in very different like manners. Sometimes community people have like they do things like a more official capacity, especially depending on like if your hands are tied and there's only so much you can say. Meanwhile, some companies and some community managers like they have a lot more free reign. It's much more so. It does feel like a community thing, which is really cool, especially for a game like this that is like online and persistent. It's nice to have that level of communication.
And especially with the game being a big social experience as well, where a lot of your game is really just like meeting people, meeting friends, and just like hanging out. I think it really does represent the soul, the heart of the game to a really big extent to the marketing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, I mean, I get the feeling that sort of if that's how the community team are like responding on Twitter, it's probably come from a point where like they're probably diehard fans of the series that have been there for a long time, and they've been waiting for this opportunity for it to like finally come to the West. So like, now that it is there, they're just like, it's like a passion project for them, right?
For sure, definitely. Now with Phantasy Star Online 2, you are going to try it out, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Like, yeah, once the open beta, like, I didn't realize until you told me that like it was region free. So like now that I know I'll do that, but I obviously missed the sign up for closed beta, so I'm gonna wait till open. But yeah, I definitely gonna be doing that.
My question to you, Arekkz, is which platform are you going to play it on, and why?
Ooh, well, I mean, I want to say Switch, right? But
that might be a little bit later. I'm not entirely sure though, but yeah.
No, but the realistic thing is probably PC, just because it's the sort of game that like I think like the whole team would play anyway, like the rest of the Arekkz gaming team. Something the guys might stream anyway, and just from a convenience point of view, then it's just like we've all got consoles anyway, but from a convenience point of view, if it's on PC, we can just download it, the stream set up, and it's ready to go. So I would probably imagine that I would do majority of my playing on PC.
But my question now for you is, why did you first mention the Switch though?
Switch, just because like it's kind of the running joke, but it's like Switch is my favorite console. Like Switch, I love Nintendo, and I'll put my hand up and be like, I'm a Nintendo fanboy, right? But like if I have the option to play a game on any platform, and Switch is one of those platforms, I will play that, right? Like I'm about to begin my Witcher 3 journey, right? Because like finally I'm going to try and get ready to play Witcher, and everyone's like, you could play The Witcher on PC with amazing graphics, but you want to play it on Switch? I'm like, yep. Because at least I can take it with me. I can sit somewhere. I can sit out in the garden. I can sit on a plane and I can play it. Like I think because like for me, even though I grew up playing consoles anyway, I think a lot of my fondest gaming memories, like as a child, were like, or like as I was growing up, was like handheld, because like a lot of it I would I had like DS's, I had 3DS, I had PSP, I had Vita. And for a long time I used to, like, especially before like the online gaming space was like a really big thing, I just used to like spend a lot of time doing handheld stuff. So the Switch is just special to me. It's like the fact that it is handheld and home console and stuff. So yeah, I think but to be realistic, it would definitely be PC for PSO, because if however you said it was like PSO1 where it did have an offline mode, I'd be like definitely playing on Switch, because then I can play it on the go. But the fact that it is purely online, I think I would just leave it on PC.
Right. Yeah, and then speaking of like, things being on a lot of handhelds and stuff, it's actually crazy that we're actually might be walking to an age where mobile gaming is actually a pretty big thing. Because even Monster Hunter recently also has a new mobile game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's coming out at the end of this month, actually. Yeah, Monster Hunter Riders. I mean, the mobile ones from Monster Hunter are quite. They're gacha games. They're obviously like heavily monetized and stuff. So they're not really great examples. Having said that, you can get the full Monster Hunter Stories game on mobile, and that's a great game. So that's obviously a different one. But yeah, the mobile space is expanding. I mean, phones are getting incredibly powerful, and like there are genuinely some good games on mobile. I think mobile's got like a way to go, just because mobile's kind of got that stigma where like everyone's like, mobile games, like that's not a real game.
Or gacha games.
Yeah, or gacha games or anything like that, right? And that's fair, because that is like a lot of what is on the phone. So it's not wrong to kind of have that assumption. But there have been some like the occasional sort of gem on like iPhone that's just like, or phones in general, and it's because it's basically just another device, right? It's just like a small PC. So yeah.
And with phones also getting like really much stronger and stronger every single day, it's like I guess we just get a better device to play games on every day.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And then even Phantasy Star Online 2 has Phantasy Star Online 2 ES, which is like the phone version that's also connected to your main game.
Oh really? What's ES?
ES is basically just the portable version of Phantasy Star Online 2, where you can do like all your inventory management. You can get exclusive items that will also transfer over to like the main game and stuff for playing on the mobile version. And then it's just like, cool. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird thing where it's not something that you would probably expect from like, say, for example, if you say, oh, there's World of Warcraft, but phone version, right? And then you can play World of Warcraft on phone. It's like, what?
Yeah.
You would get like this big like question mark kind of thing. The thing is, like, initially, PSO2 ES did not do exactly well because people didn't really like the gameplay and stuff. And honestly, that's really kind of, like, expected. But I feel like it's kind of, like, PSO2 is really, they always try to do something weird and new. For example, making the phone game connection, or, like, now trying to do, like, all the cross plays and everything. I feel like they really are trying to pioneer a lot of things. even though some of them might be like successful or not. It's interesting. Definitely something interesting.
I mean, they definitely don't seem to be afraid to try stuff.
Because worst case, whether it's like good or not, you can still use PSO2 ES as like, checking the market prices for items. You can still buy stuff on the actual game and stuff because it's all connected into one big server. I'll have to see as well whether like ES is going to be connected or ES is going to be released in North America or not, because you actually do get like bonus storage for playing ES as well and stuff like that. So it's just small features. Still,
it's still cool to have like those like additional like things to do alongside it, especially if you end up being one of those people that is like super invested in the game and there's things you can do on the side. Then that's cool.
I just find it to be absolutely interesting because like the ES gameplay is kind of like they try to mirror the real gameplay of Phantasy Star Online 2 in like a very like mini version kind of thing. But yeah, it's just really cool to think about conceptually, at least.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And now we're on to a segment where we did talk about like a lot of the implications of the game's release, and then now that we're moving into the phase of the game coming into the open beta soon, and you possibly wanting to jump in there as well and just test the waters and everything.
Yeah.
I really want to know, like, for me being someone who's super experienced in Phantasy Star Online 2, right? I've played this game for over 7 years and have what is like 11 characters completely maxed out, which is a really hard thing to do in MMO games because it does take a lot of time and effort to, grind all the levels and everything like that. So
nice.
For me as a veteran here in the Phantasy Star series, and then for you as a veteran of the Monster Hunter series, right? Which, like we said earlier, is kind of like a series that is really closely related to each other, but is not exactly like each other and whatnot. I kind of like want to see the perspective of you, who, like I said, is the veteran there. Also, I want to know what is like your biggest, say, interest or concern or worry or anything coming into Phantasy Star Online 2 in the open beta soon. Or in other words, simply like, what do you want to know the most about Phantasy Star Online 2?
I mean, honestly, it's kind of like a hard one to answer like initially because it's been so long since I've played the series. Like I have loose memories of like the stuff that I did. I have like fond memories of the things like that, and and obviously like the attachment to the franchise. But it's been such a long time since I've played, so there's not really as many like hyper specific things that I necessarily want to know per se, because I'm just like, well, I've been out it so long that I can't even remember what it is to a degree, if you see what I mean. Like I know what Phantasy Star is, I know obviously like a lot of those things, but I guess the main thing is sort of like what's like new, because if my only memory is PSO 1 and 2, what are the main, like especially if you're someone that's kind of coming into this new, like what are the main standout like new things in PSO 2? Are we talking like, are there new races? Are there new classes? Like they're the main defining factors.
Oh, for sure. Well, number one, the first thing is you can now jump in PSO2.
Yes, finally. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why, but it's that one thing where I talk to a lot of like old Phantasy Star players and they're like, wait, you can jump in PSO2?
You know what, right? It's funny about like jumping in general in video games. It's such a simple thing, but I love it, right? In any game, if I can jump, or more importantly, if I can't jump. And it's funny to say that because I'm a huge Zelda fan. Zelda is my number one favorite franchise ever. And Link can't jump for most things. He can jump if you run off a ledge, but he can't, in most things, can't organically jump unless you have like the odd kind of game where you have like the jumping boots or like in Breath of the Wild. But generally speaking, you can't jump. But in most games, if you have the ability to jump, even if you can't go anywhere with it, I kind of just like jumping. So jump and roll.
Definitely. That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
It's not something I would expect personally, but that's just really cool to see. It's just like the very small thing, but it's like, oh my god, I can do it now.
I think it's that kind of like it's almost a slight degree more freedom, right? Because if you can't jump, you're like, I'm stuck to the ground. I have to run this path you've given me. And okay, sometimes when you jump, like you've got invisible walls, so you can't actually go anywhere. But normally in games when you can jump, it's like, there's this weird ledge. Maybe I can kind of jump up here even if I'm not supposed to. Like it's just that kind of fun. Like you get to do silly things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate jumping.
I can imagine that. But yeah, first of all, the biggest difference is PSO2 right now, since it's been like updated, right? Initially, Phantasy Star Online 2, when it was released, only released with like 3 classes initially.
Okay, yeah.
And then they added like 3 more later. So it's the basic Hunter, Ranger, and Force.
Cool.
So like Hunter being, the normal like quote unquote Monster Hunter class where you swing your giant sword and stuff.
Okay.
It's really like this iconic class for MMOs in general. I feel like every MMO just has this one class that has like this giant sword
definitely.
really really slow moving and just hits really hard.
True.
Definitely an MMO thing. So nextly, Ranger is kind of like this class where it's like, if you've ever played third-person shooter games before, you might be really familiar with these kinds of classes. It's like the sniper classes where you get this assault rifle and the launchers, where you use like really modern kind of military-style weapons where you can shoot things from afar, kind of like similarly to the bowguns of Monster Hunter.
Oh,
and then the Force is, of course, the standard mage class that MMOs would probably expect to have. And then later on, they also added the more classes that are kind of really closely related to the first three classes, but they're kind of like quote-unquote counterparts of them in a way.
Cool.
So there's Fighter, which is like the complete opposite of Hunter. And then Fighter being, used... Instead of using this one great weapon, big slow weapon, you're using much faster weapons that does a lot of damage, and you don't really have defensive abilities. And then rather than being like super tanky and stuff, you're really risk reward kind of thing, where Fighter has like this one skill called Limit Break, where basically you're effectively put to 20% of your health in exchange for you getting so much damage, but you're in like one-shot territory.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and it's a complete parallel from Hunter being the tanky class.
Yeah, that's true.
And then the second one is going to be Gunner, which is kind of like the opposite of Ranger once again. Ranger is a super long range rifle kind of class. It's kind of like a sniper class in a way. While Gunner is using like twin machine guns and stuff, your damage bonus comes from being completely up close and point blank range.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay.
So it's a pretty interesting dynamic there. And then Force being like this immobile nuker and stuff, the counterpart, quote unquote counterpart to Force is the Techer class, which is actually a support class.
Oh, okay.
So like the buffer healer kind of thing.
Yeah. I see.
Yep. And then later on, this is where PSO2 diverges from the previous games now, is that they have these two new classes called the Braver class and the Bouncer class. Now the names might seem a little weird. It's like, when you think of like conventional MMO terms, like what in the world is a Braver and a Bouncer, right?
Yeah.
But for Braver is a class where it's a hybrid of melee and ranged, where you use a bit of a more traditional weapon kind of style, where you have access to the really fast-hitting melee katana, which is focused on like reactive parrying and also just really fast high hit counts and everything like that.
Cool.
Being really high mobile. And then the other weapon that you get for Braver is the bullet bow, where you can snipe enemies from range and do heavy damage to single target and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a weapon that works in conjunction, and it's a hybrid between range and striking.
Huh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. While Bouncer is now starting to get into a little bit of the more weird territory. Now, Bouncer is a class where you have two weapons, which is the dual blades, or, well, in the North American version, they're going to translate this one to the soaring blades. And the other weapon is jet boots.
Ooh, okay.
That is like the very big impression kind of like sound that everyone makes, is like jet boots. Everyone's like, oh, what is that?
That sounds cool. That sounds like my kind of thing.
Yeah, and then jet boots is a really strange weapon, because you would think that like, you might be hovering around with jet boots and everything, and it does exactly that, but jet boots is actually a hybrid magic weapon where you actually cast text off of the jet boots. It's like, wait, what? Like, you literally can shoot fireballs and do all that crazy stuff on the jet boots itself, while still having the hybrid of, like, being able to do striking attacks and really just, like, fly around kind of, like, freely. It's a really interesting hybrid.
Yeah, definitely.
While the soaring blades are kind of, like, the really... how do you explain it? If you've ever played... No, I know you've played Sword Art Online. It's more or less the Kirito class with the two swords.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, I get you.
Really high hit count, high hit combo, and then you can just like hover in the air almost indefinitely. You have really big air control in Bouncer, so it's just something really fun.
Nice, sounds cool.
Yeah, and then the last class that is the most basic classes, well, the first 9 basic classes is going to be Summoner, which...
Right.
Summoner is a bit of a different kind of gameplay than the completely, like, it's completely different from the entire game, because Summoner is like, yo, you gotta use your pets to attack. It's like, what? It's like, imagine if suddenly in Monster Hunter it's like you have a class where you raise a Jagras or something, and then the Jagras goes attack for you.
That'd be brilliant.
Yeah, it's kind of like a pretty funny class, and it's really unique compared to everything else in the game, which actually brings up a pretty interesting case because like Summoner can be a hit or miss class because anyone who really plays, you know, the normal like striking range or like the magic classes is like, why would I want to play Summoner? Right? Because it's so different from like the fundamentals of the game itself. And then like the mechanics are so different. It's like, But then there's also people that really do enjoy it. So it's kind of like an interesting conundrum where PSO2 is like a game where they try to really appease just about every single type of audience, you know, where you have everything from like the slow hitting melees to the fast hitting combos to guns to magic to like, it's almost like everything imaginable.
Yeah, that is nice. Like that especially that's gonna like appeal to like a lot of people if they're coming in for the first time. Like having all those options is gonna be good.
Yeah, and then because of that, right? There's all these classes, but then there's also even more weapons because it's not that one class is like limited to say one weapon. For example, like Hunter has 3 weapons, Ranger has 2 weapons, etc. like that. So it's not exactly like every class is like one weapon and stuff. So you have quite a bit of like degree of flexibility, and also you can feel free to like change your class at any time.
Oh, really?
So you're not restricted to like, oh, I have to play Hunter in this character and stuff like that. It's like if I'm bored of Hunter, I can just switch and then level up another class.
Oh, that is very cool. Okay, that's I like that. That's new, right?
Yeah,
that wasn't in PSO1.
Yeah, because like PSO1 initially had like, you know, if you're playing cast, you cannot play like force and stuff like that. You're kind of limited to like the race things. But PSO2 really made everything super easily accessible. You know, it's kind of like a very entry-level MMORPG, and I would highly recommend this game to literally anyone who might not have played this genre of game before, because it's super casual-friendly and just super like casual kind of like style game in general, where you don't have to like be super crazy good at the game to enjoy the entire experience of it. But if you're a super hardcore like grindy kind of player, you can still really grind hardcore to the game and be rewarded for grinding and everything like that as well.
That's cool.
And then there's actually 3 more classes, which is like the successor classes, where they use the weapons of sorry, I can't even speak right now. But like they use the weapons of the existing classes, but then play it in a completely different manner. For example, the first successor class that got released was a class called Hero. Now Hero actually uses the Hunter's Great Sword.
Oh.
So, by normal instinct, you would think that the Great Sword is like a super slow hitting, like big charging weapon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's completely fair. But then Hero throws that entire idea completely out of the window and say, for Hero, the Great Sword is going to be played like you're playing a giant, like one-handed saber.
What? That sounds awesome. That sounds like me. That sounds like my class.
Yeah. And then they introduced new mechanics that like is hybrid of like the other classes as well, because like Hero has this super risk reward kind of like element to it where you get a 60% damage boost if you don't get hit, and then you lose that damage boost, and you need like an entire, if you get hit you lose the damage boost, right? And then you basically need like an entire minute to get it back to 60%.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a super like risk reward kind of thing. And then it also happens to be the same kind of thing for like the other 2 classes as well, where they bring the same weapons from the existing classes and then just play it out completely differently. And then for me as someone who's been here before like the successor classes even started, right? It's like you have this mentality of like these weapons are only made for this kind of niche. And then these classes come out and then they're like, wow, I don't know what I'm playing anymore. It's like a completely different weapon. It's such a breath of fresh air. And it's really interesting to me.
Yeah, that is really cool. Are those classes available from the start as well, or are they later?
You for this one, for the successor classes, you have to at least have 2 classes, 2 of the base 9 classes leveled to level 75, in which the level cap right now is level 95. So you need the basic classes leveled to a certain extent first, 2 of them, before you can switch over to the successor classes, as they kind of like make you want to like learn the basic mechanics of the class first before you start off with the new mechanics. So it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, fair. Cool.
So because PSO2 is still an MMO game, there's this like thing about like playing classes in MMOs, you know. There's late bloomers, there's really early game classes and stuff like that. For example, if you're playing a mage in any MMO ever, you're probably not going to have a good time in the early game because you don't really have a lot of resources.
True.
Yeah, and that's entirely true for Phantasy Star Online 2 as well. So it's kind of like, what class do I play, right? For example, you might be able to play like a more beginner-friendly class at first, and then once you're like more experienced with the game, you can switch to like the harder classes like that. So I think it's a pretty good system per se, because it really gives you like the option to really ease into the game, and then before you like do anything you want to and things like that.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds good. Yeah, no, I'm excited.
It's gonna be definitely really fun, because especially like I said right now that the Western audiences are really starting to see traction to this game now. I think there's a lot of things to be anticipated, and then especially if the Steam release like rumors and stuff are true, which I believe so it's true, because like, you know, you can connect your Xbox to Steam and stuff. It's huge implications for the future. Definitely huge implications.
Definitely. Yeah, 100%.
Now, the last thing that I do want to really just go briefly about is the end game of games. Because initially, right, when you play these kinds of like instant-based like hunting games or stuff like that, you kind of have like this issue of, you know, running into the same monsters just like over and over again, because this is basically what you do. Like that is, I believe that's like what everyone felt as well. Maybe like playing Monster Hunter World and stuff. At the end of the day, you're kind of like sitting here and just hunting the same like 3 or 4 or 5 Elder Dragons over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's exactly where the live service games really do edge out of like these kinds of games, you know? It's kind of like you're having a work in progress expansion all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Where you kind of like get the new things, and everyone's just gonna like swarm the new things, while the newer players just still have to like go through the content that's already existing and stuff like that. So it's a pretty interesting thing to think about, like how these games actually really do work their like services, and just how they really manage the content and stuff to keep people engaged. And it's even more interesting so because Phantasy Star Online 2 has been, like I said, it's running in Japan for like 8 years now at this point. And then the story and everything is still continuously being updated. So there's always something for you to really look forward to. And then the latest class, the newest class that just got added was exactly on December 18th of last year. So it was only 2 months since we got our newest class, the 12th class of Phantasy Star Online 2.
So they're very much still supporting it, which is
definitely
really cool.
How Phantasy Star Online 2 came to the West, or rather, okay, let me just go back a little bit to 2013, where initially Sega wanted to bring this game to the West itself, right? The reason that they kind of discontinued it, this is from my understanding. I could be like wrong or anything like that, but from what I've heard and what I've researched myself is that Sega kind of like gauged the Western market and say that we don't think that Phantasy Star Online 2 is going to financially like be really good idea to like invest into the North American market right now, because at the time of like 2013, right, Phantasy Star Online 2 is still having like this really slow start. So they kind of like thought that it probably is not the best idea to just bring it over, and that's why they kind of like just went radio silent and canceled it, quote unquote canceled.
Okay.
But then eventually the game, as it updates and everything, they listened to a lot of player feedback. The game went through a lot of ups and downs. They went through even changes of like the game director and stuff. And then now Phantasy Star Online 2 is Sega Japan's biggest earning title, with over it's over 50 or 60% of the company's earning, according to Sega's like financial report.
Wow, that's great. That's crazy. That's awesome to see. There's so many parallels between like that and Monster Hunter, because similar sort of thing to Monster Hunter for a while, right? It was such a niche, small title, and suddenly now it's Capcom's biggest title. So that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. And then it's kind of like, you can say like the Western audience kind of like has this, you know, the Japan server's been like, it's an 8-year of a beta tested game, and now we're gonna get the full game, right?
True.
So honestly, in my personal opinion, and especially that the game's probably going to release on Steam and all that, I'm optimistic. I'm really, really optimistic for the future.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think it's got everything. I think despite the fact that it is an old game, and to a lot of people, if they're coming in brand new, it might look dated. I think the fact that it's free to play, able to download, and people can kind of just jump in, I feel like it's at least got the great potential to do, because there's like basically no barrier to entry.
For sure. And then like you said, though, if people are interested in trying, there's no cost to entry at all. They can just download it and be like, oh, I don't like it. It's fine. You don't lose anything.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and I think that is like, especially I think especially if you're trying to sort of bring something back from like this older or something like that, then this would be the best way to get people in. So yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Definitely, for sure. And well, I guess we've been on here for at least like a bit over an hour now, and that probably is a pretty good place to wrap everything up. I believe so.
Awesome, thank you for having me. It's been fun. I'm excited to jump in when the open beta happens.
Yeah, no, thank you so much as well, because like for me playing Monster Hunter like after all these years, right? I've been watching your content and I'm like, man, a lot of these like coverage that you do for like the class spotlights and everything is also something I really want to try to do as well for Phantasy Star Online 2. And
nice.
with the weapon workshops that you do, I was so inspired by that when I first initially played Monster Hunter, and I feel like it's kind of like a thing where you do and you kind of like want to give back to the community.
Yeah. Yeah, you basically want to show people like, you love the game yourself, and you just want to make sure that people can enjoy the game the same way, right? So
yeah, as much as you do. And it's just it's just something really interesting, and especially me being like a very big veteran, I feel like it's really important to have like, these community pillars to really just help guide everyone to really enjoy the game, because like I said, it's kind of like we played the beta, quote unquote beta, for like 7 years.
Yeah,
right?
True.
So that's basically it.
Yeah.
We're here to
help.
help.
It's important because when the game comes out, and the first thing people will do is they'll Google that stuff. They'll be like, all right, how do I unlock this class? What is this class? What's the all that stuff? If they can find that stuff easily, then that'll definitely create for a smoother experience when people start playing it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it'll really help people enjoy the game as well, because there's a lot of information. Unlike, when games first release, it's like everyone's just like scrambling to find information and all that, but then there's like a whole like piece of, how do you say it? It's kind of like a big commune of content already existing. People can just like digest as much as they want to.
Yeah, definitely
looking up. Well, anyways, Arekkz, do you have anything else that you want to say to all your fans who like supporting you through all your content, or like any of the Phantasy Star fans that are waiting to like play the game or like know you and be like, oh my god, Arekkz is a fan of Phantasy Star and stuff like that as well?
I mean, I'm just excited to jump in. Like, I'm excited to jump in from the perspective of someone that has not played for like a super long time. So I'm just like, it's going to be interesting, obviously, like, catching up on stuff today and realizing that like there's so much stuff that I've got the memories coming back, but I'm just like, I would literally be going in as like an absolute noob, but I cannot wait. Like, it's just going to be fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing lots of people in the world out there.
Yeah, definitely, because especially you're coming into like 8 years of content. It's absolutely mind-blowing about like this world that you're about to jump in, and it's like, honestly, in hindsight, it might actually be even a better idea to play a game that's already like really long established rather than starting afresh. It's a different feeling for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, we're really looking forward to the future. And once again, Arekkz, just thank you so much for taking the time today. I've learned so many things from this. There was a lot of really interesting conversations, and I hope a lot of people would really appreciate your perspectives and takes on the games and everything as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I apologize it's taken me such a long time to I know we've been like speaking back and forth for quite a while trying to sort of organize this, but I'm glad we finally managed to make it happen. So yeah, awesome. Thank you for having me.
It was really fun. Thank you so much. And then with that said, everyone, thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. Show some love to Arekkz in the comments. Do you have anything you want our comments to say? Like, for example, like, oh my god, waiting for PSO2 hype, or like something.
How about hashtag PSO2 for Europe?
Hashtag PSO2 for Europe.
Hashtag PSO for Europe, or PSO2 for the UK, so I can play it without crazy American ping, please.
All right, we'll have to see what happens there. Maybe they'll do multiple servers. Who knows? The future is definitely still open for grabs, so we'll see what happens then. Yep. Awesome. And with that said, everyone, don't forget to smile, and we will see you sometimes later. Take care, everyone.
Take care.